Alright, so open the air javelin up. There's nothing to it. It's a bunch of screws. You don't want to watch me take those out. Take all the screws out of this thing, all the way around here. If you're having trouble with it, I'm sure you can find a video somewhere. You just take all the screws out. Pull the sock off. Grab this assembly. You don't need to drain your CO2 or anything. It'll come out just like it is and it's safe. Alright, so the hammer slides in this area right here. I don't know if you can see it or not. I think the lighting is good enough, but it's got some marks on it right here where it's worn the finish off of the paint, right? This thing looks like it fits there real loose. And up and down this way it does. Side to side it doesn't. When I tighten down the screws that are in this area right here, these two screws, the CO2 or the hammer stops falling out. So I'm fixing to remove some material off of this right here in this area and see if I can free this up. When you turn the gun up like this and drop this in, it doesn't go to the bottom. It goes down about a ½ inch from the bottom and stops, right? So anyway, that little drag that it's got is what's causing this thing to lose its velocity. When you turn the gun up, it should fall out like that. It doesn't. So I'm going to remove some stock off of this area right here on both sides, right in here. We're going to see if it'll do better. I just happen to have one of these little electric belt sanders, and this is what I'm going to use. Yeah, I probably could have sent this back to Umarex. It's under warranty. I bought it brand new. They probably would have replaced it and not give me any grief about it at all. But it's really not in my nature to send stuff back not knowing, for myself what was wrong. So I'll just tear it apart and fix it myself. I suspected the hammer was dragging because it had good velocity, advertised velocity like 305 feet per second when I first got it. And I took it apart and had a look at the inside of it. And when I put it back together, I noticed that the velocity was down. Well, I thought it was my PCP conversion that I put in it. So I took it out and I put it back on CO2. And velocity was still down. Anyway, I think it was like 265 feet per second. Down from 305 feet per second. Anyway. It actually got down to 230 something feet per second for a few shots after the second time I took it apart. So that's when I knew something was wrong. I tried loosening up the screws in the stock to see if it made any difference, and it made a little difference, but it did not get back up to 305 feet per second on CO2. It only got back up to around 280, which isn't bad. But it was 305 on CO2. So I figure I'm fixing to work on it a little bit. Maybe change out the hammer spring or do some shimming. It's got an adjustment on it, on the hammer spring inside the stock that I didn't know it had until I took it apart, and I got looking and I found it. It wasn't in the book, or I never seen anybody mention it in any reviews or videos. So I don't know if anybody really knew about it. And it's not a lot of adjustment, but it does have adjustment. So we're going to play with it a little bit and see what we can get out of this thing. Dust everywhere now. Put these two halves together and see if we've done anything. And the hammer should drop all the way into the bottom, and when you tilt the gun up, it should come all the way, fall out, I did notice when I loosened these two screws, it fell out. When I tighten them back up, it wouldn't fall out. These are the only 4 screws that are along that channel that the hammer spring rides in. These 2 and these 2. So those are the ones I'm going to put back in for right now. Not yet. See how hard I had to hit that? That thing should fall out of there. It's wedging in. Now if I loosen these screws, falls out. So looks like more filing is in order. You probably don't want to watch me file all this, clean it up and all that, but anyway, that's what I found. After I reassembled the gun, the hammer was dragging just a little bit. I suppose I could just loosen these 2 screws up and leave them, but can't do that either. I've got to sand on it and grind on it and find out if it's going to work. Alright, I'll let you know how it turns out. Alright, so I think I got it fixed. Hear that bounce? Fell all the way to the bottom. Oops, spoke too soon. Must have had it turned. If it doesn't fall out like that, when you take the stock off, then you have got issues with the hammer being squeezed, mainly by tightening down these 2 screws. You can probably get away with just loosening them back up. However, that didn't work for me. It only got it back up to about 285 feet per second, instead of 305. So we're going to go with that. I'll do a little reassembly video. These two O-rings right here, these are all that hold your arrow in when you point your gun downhill. That's what you feel it locking against, is these two little O-rings right here. You just kind of click against it. Anyway, make sure those are in place. There's two little slots for it. Make sure those are in there, or you're going to have issues. Put our sear back in. It's pretty straightforward. Spring hooks over this and so on. Anyway, now I'm going to put, this is the cocking lever. I don't know why they got two of these in here. They're separate anyway. The hammer is hollow on one side, not on the other. Make sure that the hollow spot goes to the back where the spring is. That in there. And the cocking lever, I probably should have been paying attention to which way this came out. We're going to go with that. Anyway. This little thing right here is what holds the forearm on. This is going to for sure fall out. It's not hard to put back in. It only goes in one way. This little piece it's got right here sticking out, see that? Anyway, that thing goes right here. You'll notice which way it fits in. It fits really good one way, not the other way. Then you just got to get a hold of it. Hold it to one side with your fingers. Set this right down on top of the spring. And start putting screws back in. There's a lot of them. It's just a plastic sock, so don't over tighten it. I guess one thing I should point out, all the screws from here back are long and all the screws from here forward are short. Don't put the short screws in long and long screws in the short. You're bound to have issues. Alright, these little tiny rubber plugs right here. Alright. These are in every hole on this thing, except for maybe these two. Anyway, you don't need these, but they can be fished out with a small pick or a needle or something. You can pick these out. It makes it look like the whole gun's held together with pins. It's not. They're just rubber plugs. Those will never go back in my gun again. So, the big heavy spring is the hammer spring. It's harder to compress. The long skinny spring, that's the cocking knob return. Anyway, this one goes in the top, and this one goes in the bottom. Slide this back on. The long screws go in from the other side. These little nuts, they're a little bit tough to put back in here. The springs keep it under tension, so you have to hold this in. Drop the nut in there. Try to get it in the right spot. Put your thumb over it and start tightening down the screw. Come on. This is probably the biggest pain of taking this whole thing apart. Just trying to get those screws to start under those little bitty nuts. There we go. Alright. No leftover parts. That's a good thing. It still snaps in and works the way it's supposed to. And for those of you that didn't know about the power adjusting screw, or the adjustment for the preload on that spring, right inside there. Just slide the stock back and it's right there. There's a 4mm Allen wrench, and to increase power you turn it counterclockwise. To decrease power you turn it clockwise. Anyway, sounded healthy. Let's go see if it shoots. I think we're back. That'll do for me. I'll go put the PCP bottle back on it and start hunting for a heavier hammer spring.